Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm going to be sharing a Tip Tuesday all about this stamp set from Illustrated Faith. So this is the Paper Dolls stamp set that was a partnership between Illustrated Faith and Beloved Society. Now this stamp set is currently sold out. Super sorry about that, but it is coming back. They are going to restock it, and I want to get this video up for those of you who did order it already. That way you can have some ideas for how to use these girls. I did see on Shauna's, I think her Instagram, she was talking about how they are actually in the process of developing a second version of this as well that you can kind of mix and match. So if you're not familiar with Beloved Society, she has been creating content for Illustrated Faith and their digital print and pray shop. She's got some products in Hobby Lobby, some stickers, things like that. She just has adorable artwork. I have one of her prints from a few years ago, and they're super cute. So when they came out with this paper doll set, the idea is that you can mix and match the different hairs, different shirts, and then different florals and stuff. I have some added things on here, but glasses and necklaces and just fun things to create personalized little girls. So if you wanted to make them look like you or look like somebody specific that you're praying for, you could do that. So I have an example here. This is a girl that I had in one of my flip throughs recently. I'll link that down below, that I made to look like me. I did stamp her shirt out on one of the clear acetate messy cards from the Joy Journey kit and made that her shirt. And then I did some acrylic paint. Beloved Society, a lot of the time when she is painting or doing her prints, her originals are with acrylics, and they have like acrylic paints and then this like thick black line that she outlines everything with. So I wanted to kind of recreate that. So I'll show you how I do that, and that's actually what I did with this girl here. And I want to show you some tips for layering on the different florals and things like that without, you know, having lines going through them. That's what all this blue is. These are some masks, so I'll show you what that looks like. And then just different ways to add, you know, personal touches like the heat embossed necklace. You could cut the shirts out of patterned paper. I'm going to show you a trick with gelato to give them some blush, so be watching for that. And then this is a simpler girl, so I just used some colored ink to stamp her hair and then just markers to color in her shirt, and then I did stamp on some colored paper and then added some details. So I'm going to show you how to go all out crazy, do super detailed, or do something a little bit more simple with these girls. So let's dive in. There's going to be lots of little tricks and hints along the way, so bear with me, but I'm going to pull out a couple of things here. Let me set this aside. Okay, so I have a piece of scrap paper that I can stamp off on, and then a piece that we're going to work on here. And then what I did first was I created some masks for myself. So when you are stamp layering and you want it to look like it's all one stamp, you do what's called stamp masking. So these are different floral images. Let me kind of pull this off here. Different floral images, and so then I just stamped those out on some sticky notes, and these are full back sticky notes, so the entire back side of the sticky note is sticky, and so I stamped all of these different pieces down on here. Now I actually pulled off like 3 or 4 sheets when I stamped, so let me show you what that looks like. So if I stamp this flower on here, and it does not have to be a perfect impression by any means, because this is just going to be a mask. So what I did was I actually pulled off like 3 or 4 sheets of the sticky notes, and then I cut out around my flower piece. And what you want to do is cut right on the black line of the image. That's going to give you the best results. And so then as I fussy cut this out, I'm actually going to have 4 masks, since I had 4, you know, sheets lined up as I cut them out. So that's what I have laying on top of here, are just all of those different masks that I can use. And by doing that, you know, very first, then I don't have to make them every time that I work with this stamp set. They're already made. So that is what those are. Now let me show you kind of how to build these. Let's do the simple girl first. So you can pick one of these shirts. I'll load it up on my stamp block here. I'm going to jump back and forth between inks. I'm going to stamp with, I like VersaFine ink better, but if I'm stamping over something like acrylic paint, then I want to stamp with an archival ink. So I'm going to stamp her shirt down first. Now you could stamp this on like patterned paper. I pulled out the Illustrated Faith You Are Loved collection, and so you could stamp it out like I did with my little girl, stamped it out on some patterned paper and then cut it out, or you can stamp it directly onto your page. We are going to make all kinds of messes today. It's going to be kind of messy, but we'll get through it. So now I'm going to do her face next. That's this piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and ink that up. And ideally you want to get right over the top of your stamp to line it up. I'm just going to try to guess since I'm filming. I'm going to get that stamped down. Let's see here. And I'm just using a baby wipe to clean my stamps today just because it's nice and quick and easy. Okay, so if we're going to do, let's say this girl with this hair here, I'll show you how I did this. So you can stamp this in a colored ink. So I'm going to pull out some colored inks here. I have some browns and blacks. And so I'm actually going to kind of layer this up to really get some dimension to her hair. So I'm going to stamp in the brown first. And these are just the Versamagic little dewdrop inks. And this is Jumbo Java, but you can use whatever ink that you want. And so basically this is going to line up with the lines of the face. Mine isn't going to be perfect because I'm not getting my head right over it like I should. If you're stamping this, you want to get your head right over the top of it. So there you can see that. You could leave that just as it is, just the brown, but I'm going to go in and add a little bit of black just to add some interest to her hair here. And with this one, I like this Versamagic black because it's not super, super intense if you lightly kind of tap on there. So I'm not wanting it super opaque. You can see it's kind of patchy. And then if I come back in, line this up again, carefully without getting my head in there. Just going to add a little bit of black shading to her hair, and that just adds some interest. And I did miss some area in the front, but that's okay. It would be better if I had my head right over the top of it. So there is her hair. And again, this is kind of the simpler way to do this. So now you can go in with your big brush markers and color your girl in. I think I'm going to color her a little bit darker this time. So we're just going to come in with some markers. You could use some watercolor paints. You could use watercolor pencils, whatever you want to use to color your girls in. But this is just kind of the fastest way. So I'm coloring her in with some markers. You get the idea. Okay, and then I could go in and color her shirt, however I want to do that. But let me go ahead and jump over and do her flower like I did in this one here. So what I started with was just some orange cardstock, and then I'm going to use the big floral stamp here. I'm going to try to clean up as I go so it doesn't get too messy. I'm going to stamp with this because it dries fast. So I'm going to ink up my little flower here. Stamp that down. Now that's fine, you can leave it as it is. I smushed a little bit hard, but I like to add detail to it so it doesn't just look flat orange. So you can see with this flower here, I just have a little bit more detail and interest on the image. So what I did was I just took my markers, I took an orange marker and just went in and added some little details to the center to add some shading and just add some interest to your flower. And then I took a white gel pen, added some dot detail to the center here. And you can see how that just really livens up the flower and gives it some interest. So then you can just fussy cut this out, glue it down, and you're done. It does not have to be any more complicated than that. But let's say you want to go and do something like this girl here and really build up some layers and do some additional things with her. So let me show you how I did this one here. So to start with, I created her shirt. So let me clean off and put away here. Okay, so I'm going to use this plain open shirt here. I'm going to go ahead and actually stamp this down on the paper first, and this way we get all the little line details in the shirt. So I got that stamped down there. Okay, and then I'm also going to, I guess I didn't need to clean it off, I'm also going to stamp it down on some patterned paper here. So we'll do this pink. So same stamp, same thing, I'm just going to stamp the patterned paper. Now when I cut this out, I'm not going to worry about cutting out all those little squiggles because I stamped it on my paper, and so those squiggles will be on the paper. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to cut just like right in the center of that black line, and this shape is really simple to cut out. You can see I'm cutting off that little squiggle there, but don't worry, we'll still get it. It's just kind of like a little wonky rectangle here. Okay, so now that that's all cut out, you can see how I can glue that down over the top of where I stamped and have my little squiggles there. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue and then stick that down. Now I am going through this fairly quickly just for the sake of the video, but you get the idea. Okay, so let's say I wanted to add some, like a gold embossed necklace to her. So I've got the necklace stamp here. That's this little tassel-y bit right there. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp that with some Versamark ink that I have up here. This is a clear sticky ink. If you have questions about embossing, I will link another Tip Tuesday down below where I just did all embossing. I'm actually going to prep this with my powder tool first just to make sure that my embossing doesn't stick where it's not supposed to. And I'll go ahead and stamp down that necklace. Cleaning up my mess as I go. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and just shake out some gold embossing powder. Now, if you're having problems with your embossing, it's probably because you're not using good quality embossing powder. So I recommend Ranger, Wow, Zing. Don't use the one from Michaels. It is not good. The Recollections brand isn't good. Okay, and I'm kind of making a mess, but I'm trying to catch it on this scrap piece of paper here so I can dump it back into the container. Again, if you want tips for embossing, I will link that video down below for you guys if you want to look in detail. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set this with my heat tool till it melts and gets shiny. Okay, so now she's got this really fun gold heat embossed necklace. Love the detail there. So now for the rest of her, I'm actually going to paint her in with acrylic paints. So let me show you a little trick for that. So I'm going to pull out a light colored ink. I'm using a Tattered Rose Distress Oxide ink. Doesn't matter what you use, it just needs to be super light colored, because we are going to stamp, paint, and then stamp again. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up the face section here. And then I'm actually going to stamp this on a scrap piece of paper and then stamp it down. So I'm getting a very, very faint impression of that girl's face. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. It is super, super light, but it's just giving me kind of a guide for where to paint. So I'm going to clean my stamp off there, and then we're going to go ahead and do her hair as well. Let's go ahead and do, let's do this one. Okay, so same thing, I'm going to ink this one up. Now the key when lining this one up, let me show you with the template here, or with the packaging. So you are going to want to, you know what, let me stamp a solid version down, and then that way I'll show you how to do this. We're making messes, people. All right, so let me ink up a face. Stamp that down. Okay. So let me show you. So when you line up the stamp, you are wanting to line up this curve of the hair with the curve of her face. You can see there. So this line is actually going to be above this line of the face. Can you see that? So that is how this lines up. So you can even do this yourself to kind of get an idea of how to line it up before you stamp it down. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm inking up just her hair. I'm going to stamp that again on a piece of scratch paper, and then I'm going to go in and stamp the hair. And I am going to get my head in there just so I make sure that I'm lined up correctly. And this is where it's important to have like a clean stamp block, clean stamps, because then it's easier to line up and see what you're doing. So let me clean off my stuff, and then we'll get into painting her with the acrylic paints. Okay, so I'm going to start with painting her face, and so I'm just going to pick out, this is Porcelain Doll by Martha Stewart. I'm just going to get a small paintbrush, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see my stamp lines on there, but I'm just going to go in and paint in those lines with this light skin tone colored, my skin tone colored paint here. So you can mix whatever you need to make it custom to your skin tone. I know there's a lot of you who have been requesting for products that are inclusive and include all shapes, sizes, colors, you name it. And so what I love about this stamp set is you can really customize it to be whatever you want, whatever colors you want, whatever styles that you want. You can make it whatever you want. So I'm going to go in and do her neck here, and I'm being a little bit messy just for the sake of the video because I'm going fast. But okay, so now her skin is all painted in. Now we're going to go ahead and do her hair. So I like to, again, add dimension. So I'm going to go in, we're going to kind of create me here. So I'm going to go in with a darker brown color here and paint this in. It's a little bit more red tone than I want, but I couldn't find my dark browns. So this is what we're working with. And I'm trying to stay within the lines because when we go back to stamp, we're basically just going to stamp those same lines in black. So it covers a little bit of your mess ups, but it's not going to cover up much. So just try to be careful. I'm, again, going quick because of the sake of the video. So I'm going to paint in her hair here. So I'm going to add my base color, which is my darker color. Okay, so we've got her base color in. Now I'm going to go in with a lighter color, and I'm actually going to go in, I think, with some browns and some yellow here. We're going to give her some highlights, and like I said, this is a little bit more red than I wanted it, but that's okay. So I'm just going to pick up, kind of like how I do my flowers, where I pick up, you know, several different colors at once, and I'm just going to drag this color through her hair and just give her some highlights, give her some dimension and interest to her hair. It does not have to be perfect because obviously they don't have faces. So these are very impressionistic, very loose. So don't get too worked up in making it super perfect. So that just adds a little bit of interest to her hair there. Oops, and then I totally made a giant mess everywhere. Okay, so next up I want to show you how to get these flowers in her hair layered up on top of there. So you can see I added several here. I'm just going to add the one just for the sake of time. But before I go in and do my black stamping, I'm going to go ahead and come in with this. And again, I'm going to stamp it with a light color because we're going to double stamp it after I've painted it in. So I'm actually not going to stamp off. I'm just going to ink it up and then stamp directly on. Because I'm stamping over some color, it's kind of difficult to see. So I just want to make sure that I have some kind of line and guide as I fill this in. So now I can come back in and let's pick, let's do like a light pink. So it is a little bit difficult to paint over the top of darker, you know, acrylic paints, but it can be done because acrylics are opaque. So if you're doing this technique, you probably want to do it with acrylics because rather than watercolors, because acrylics are more opaque and easier to cover up, you know, over the top of something. So I'm going to go in and add several layers of this light pink here. Again, I have those reference lines where I had stamped with that light colored ink. Just going to build up this color. It just looks like a giant pink blob, but don't worry, once we come back in with the stamp, it kind of gives it some definition. Okay, so now I can come back in and add some detail if I want to, some shading to it. So I'm going to come in with a smaller brush and a darker pink, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of this peachy color in the center because this is where it might be darker on a flower. Again, just adding, not a bug, adding some interest to that image there. Okay. So we're going to want to heat set that, and then we can start adding in our black lines. All right, and you're going to want to work from front to back. So I'm going to stamp the flower first. Now I want to make sure that I'm lined up correctly. So I'm just going to place it down, make sure that I'm in the right orientation, and then pick it up. I'm going to stamp with an archival ink since I am stamping over the top of acrylic paint. You don't want to use a pigment ink. It will not dry. So you want to use something like SNAIL or an archival ink. So now I'm going to go in and just stamp right over the top of that flower. And you can see now I've got my definition back and it's starting to look like a flower. So now we can start adding in her hair and all that goodness. And this is where our stamp masks come into play. So I have my flower mask that I've already cut out. This doesn't have the stamped image on it because that's where I had cut out several all at once. And I'm just going to lay that over what I already stamped, and that's going to protect it as I go in and start stamping the rest of her face. So now I'm going to go ahead and stamp her face next, because it's easier to line up the hair if you've got the face already down. So go ahead and again, ideally you want your head right over the top of it, but I'm on camera and that's not going to work, so we're just going to make do. Go ahead and stamp that. We're slightly off, but that's okay. You can always touch up with paint if it's too far off. And then now we can come in with the hair piece. Again, I'm going to ink that up using the archival ink because I'm stamping over acrylic paint. You want to make sure that your paint is 100% dry before you do this step. So I am going to stick my head right over the top because I want to make sure that I get it lined up. And it's not perfect, but that's okay. I can come back in with a pen and fill that in if I need to. So now, when we remove our stamp mask, we should have the flower totally protected. So I can pull this off. And now you've got that flower, and I don't have any of my stamped lines. See, all of these stamped lines would have been through my flower and would have messed it up. But because I covered it up, now it looks like it's sitting right on top. So I can save this. As long as it's still sticky, I can still use it again and again. So don't throw away your masks. You can keep using those. And if I wanted to, I could come in and kind of clean up her hair a little bit. Where my stamping wasn't perfect, I can come in with a little bit of brown and just fill that in. And we're good to go. Okay, so now let's talk about some of one of these fun details. So her girls have, I don't know if you've ever seen them, they do on here, have blush on their face. And so I've tried a couple different ways to get blush on there, and I found the best way was an eyeshadow brush, and gelatos. So this is a $1 e.l.f. blending eye brush. Nice and fluffy and kind of a dome shape to it. And then I have some watermelon gelato. You can use whatever color, pink or whatever you want to use. And I'm just going to dust this to pick up a little bit of color. It's easier to build up. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of color and just blend it on there just like blush. And it gives you the softest little hint of blush on there. So, so cute. So now she's got blush on her cheeks. She's all done up. She's got her gold necklace. You can see here I just did the same technique. I just added more flowers, masked them off before I did all of the hair stamping. And that just adds these really, really fun details. So same thing for the scarf piece. If you wanted to add the scarf and have it be a different color or something like that, same masking technique. You would stamp it, apply your mask, and then stamp your shirt over the top of it. You've got your little glasses if you wanted to add glasses to her. You've got a pearl necklace. So lots of fun little elements to build up all of your different girls. Your bow, you could also stamp your bow on some pattern paper and then cut it out and add it. So have fun. I hope that this gives you some ideas and tips and tricks for using these stamps. Like I said, they are sold out, but they are coming back, so don't worry. I'll link them down below. That way when they are back, you can just go over and grab those. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below for me. Give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.